everybody, welcome to another episode of the Playthrough. Today we're going to be talking about Bloodborne the card game, a game by Eric Lang and CMON. And we're also going to be talking about the expansion that goes along with it. It doesn't add too much, so we felt like it would be a good idea to teach you how to play with the expansion this time around. As a quick reminder, for those of you who are listening to this audio only, you can head on over to theplaythru.net to check out the video that goes along with it and check out some of our other content. So let's jump in and learn how to play Bloodborne the card game. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the player boards that each player has in front of them. So when you set up the game, you give each player this player board and you give them 3 trophy tokens that they put on the corresponding tracks, and you give them 3 death tokens that go on the opposite end of the track. And the death tokens come with the expansion. So that's one of the differences between the base game and the expansion. The other difference that you have with the expansion is each player also gets one of these rune cards at the beginning of the game. And these are just unique player powers so that each player can feel like they're a little bit different from one another. You also give each player a life dial, which starts at 8, and this is how much life each of your hunters have. You also give them a starting hand of 5 cards, and each of the starting hands is going to be exactly the same. So the way that the game works is you just play through a series of rounds, and each round you're going to do a number of things. You're going to pick a card from your hand. Every player is going to be doing this at the same time. You all pick cards from your hand, put them face down, then you reveal them, and then the monster is going to attack the hunters are going to attack the monsters, and you score points based on how much damage you do to the monsters. And then finally, at the end of the game, once you've gone through all the monsters and you've beaten the final boss, then the game ends and whoever has the most points or blood echoes stored wins the game. So let's go a little bit into depth about how each round is going to work. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to choose and play action cards. Now if you look at the bottom of your player board here, it actually tells you what each of the steps you're going to take each round will be. So we'll go through them one by one right now. So the first one is choose and play action cards. So you're going to look at all the cards in your hand and you're going to pick one and play it face down. So let's talk about some of the important cards that you're going to see in the game. The first thing that we need to talk about is the Hunter's Dream card. This card's very important because this allows you to bank the blood echoes you get from monsters, which means you get to permanently keep your points. If you don't play the Hunter's Dream, you're not going to be able to permanently keep your points. It also allows you to get more cards to add to your hand, so it's a very important card and plays a very important role in the game. The next one is the Transform card. And this card's important because there's a step that talks specifically about this card. What this allows you to do is when you play this, you get a look at what all the other hunters have played and then decide what weapon you want to play this turn. And so that's a unique card in the game. And aside from that, there's just melee weapons, which are red, and ranged weapons, which are blue. So once you have chosen a card, you're going to put it face down. Everyone's going to do that at the same time, and then you will simultaneously reveal what card you played. So at this step, you would then play any transform cards. So if somebody played a transform card, they would play it right now. The next thing that you do is you resolve any instant effects that are on the cards. So if you see here, I played a card with an instant effect. So I would resolve that right now. Just remember, if multiple people play cards with instant effects, then you need to resolve them in turn order. And the way you know what the turn order is you have this first player token here that looks like a hunter, and you just kind of go around, and he goes around from person to person as the game progresses. As a quick note, this guy doesn't actually come with the game. This other cardboard hunter comes with the game. This was a promo that Russ decided to paint. So just know that your game doesn't come with this guy. So once you resolve all the instant effects, then we go to the next step, which is the monster attack step. So you look at the monster that's in front of you, and at the bottom, he has a little lantern here, and it'll be one of 3 colors. It'll be either green, yellow, or red. And that kind of determines how much damage he's going to do. So this monster, he rolls the yellow die because he's got a yellow lantern. So when you roll the monster die, it's got some different symbols on it. They're just numbers. This one is just numbers 1 through 3, but it also has some of these plus symbols in the top corner. So if you happen to roll a plus symbol, then you have to roll the die again and you add the new number to that. And if you keep rolling pluses, then the monster is going to keep doing damage to you. So after the monster attacks all the hunters, they take damage, and if any hunters hit 0, they die. And so they're out for the rest of the round. If you survive the monster's attack, then you get to do your attack as the hunter. Now the way that the hunter attack step works is for every little blood drop that's on a card that you play, you get to take 1 blood echo off the monster. And again, you have to do this in player order, because if the person who goes last, if there aren't any blood echoes left on the monster, he's not going to be able to get any, so he may want to change what he does. So it's important to kind of keep that in mind while you play. So once everybody takes their blood echoes for dealing damage to the monster, then we go to the next step, which is the monster escape step. So if there are any blood echoes left on the monster at this point, he escapes. And some monsters have special abilities that if they escape, then you do something like this monster here. We won't go into depth about what those are, because there's a lot of different types of things that they can do. But just keep in mind that some of them do have special abilities if they escape. So in this situation, since there's 1 blood echo left on this monster, he would escape and get away. If he hadn't escaped, then you would look down here, this little symbol. There's one in the bottom of each monster card. There's 3 different symbols that correspond to your trophy tracks on your board. If you dealt damage to the monster the turn that that monster dies, then you would move your trophy up 1 space on the trophy track, and this gives you extra bonus points at the end of the game. If you die, if that monster kills you, then you move the death token down the opposite direction, and this caps how many points you can get on that track. So it's important to keep in mind that killing monsters will get you more points, and dying to monsters will possibly make you lose points. So anyway, after the monster attacks, then we go to the next step, which is the Hunter's Dream. So if any hunters played the Hunter's Dream card during this step, then they would resolve this particular step of the game. And what you do is, the first thing you do is you heal back up to 8 health. You return any cards that you've used back to your hand. So when you play cards, they stay out of your hand until you go to the Hunter's Dream. Then you bank all the blood echoes that you have collected so far, and then you pick a card from the Hunter's upgrade row and you add it to your hand. So I would look at these cards and I'd say, oh, I want the Boom Hammer, and I would add this to my hand. It's important to note that you only have a hand limit of 7 cards, so if you end up taking an 8th card, you're going to have to discard one of them. After the Hunter's Dream step, you reveal a new monster, and then you just keep going through that same process until you've made it through all the monsters. It's important to note this monster is a little different than the one before because it says boss at the bottom. Now, bosses are harder monsters, and it's important to remember that bosses don't escape if they have blood echoes left on them. They stay out until they're defeated. So just make sure that you remember that while you play. And then once you make it through to the final boss, once he's defeated, the game ends, and the person with the most banked blood echoes is the winner. And that's how you play Bloodborne, the card game. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us here on the playthrough for this how to play of Bloodborne, the card game. If you want to hear what the rest of the group has to say about it, you can go ahead and click the video up here to hear our discussion about it. And make sure you check out the playthru.net for other videos and places to subscribe.